So, hi guys, welcome to another episode of Biohack-it. And this is an absolutely phenomenal guest that I'm bringing to you today, Dr. Mary Mbouni, who is actually an MD, and she's also a female shaman. And female shamans are so rare and so special. And I'm so glad to be bringing her to you. She's also a spiritual guide. She's an Iboga practitioner, which is a medicine that I've sat with. And I'm really excited to share more about this special medicine. She's a medicine woman. She's a conscious coach, trauma informed around sacred ceremonies facilitator, and integrative facilitator, a light healer, a mentor, and author. You are also the founder and CEO of Heart Leadership and the Source Codes Mystery School. So you're a leading expert in guiding high-performance leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, visionaries, and creatives to reconnect and manifest their fullest expression so that they may achieve high levels of performance, holistic success, alignment, and joy with true healing purpose. Dr. Marisa, welcome, and thank you for doing this. And this platform was created exactly to showcase the voice of women like you who are doing the work day in and day out, helping other women find their voice, guiding them. And, this is, I always call plant medicine to me is so important because I really think it's light work. And, it plays such a big role into tapping into ancestral work and really getting to the root cause of trauma. So thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and also to see a sister doing the same work and really uh, showing up for women, because I believe that as women together we rise.
Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to go into Iboga is not as common in medicine, let's say, to start with, as people are more familiar with ayahuasca. Normally, when I tell people, do you know what Iboga is? They're like, what is that? So I would love for you to tell our guests to start with about this incredible sacred medicine and its history.
Mm. So Iboga is a root bark medicine, plant medicine that originates in Africa. It grows in Cameroon, Gabon, and really, when you look around the region of Central Africa, those two countries are where Iboga is really prevalent and the Iboga shamanism is practiced. I'm calling it Iboga shamanism for everybody to understand, but really it's like the Bwiti culture,
Yeah.
Bwiti work with Iboga. That's how it's called there. And the story about this is that it was really discovered by the pygmies. The pygmies could be considered the aboriginal people
Mm-hmm.
of Africa, right? And then it was gradually brought out into the general population. And a lot of countries that are right around there actually do not grow, or let's say Iboga is not originally growing there,
Mm-hmm.
but you have Cameroon and Gabon, and that's where the root of
Of
that
Iboga
medicine
culture.
comes from, and the practices and the ceremonies come from.
And I wanted to, Dr. Murray, take everyone through, Iboga is it's a long ceremony. It's a long, you really have to sit with the medicine. So a typical ceremony, I'd love to tell our, guests like about our listeners about who qualifies to practice this medicine, what makes you potentially call to it, or should I do it, should I not? And also to walk people through the ceremony. And then I wanted to walk then from there into the incredible healing properties of Iboga.
So Iboga is not really for everyone. It's not an everyday medicine. It's not like, let's say, Los Niños, the mushroom
Mhm.
medicine. It's not like ayahuasca. It's people who sit with Iboga, if they're really careful, it's usually a calling. You kind of feel like this is the medicine I want to sit with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also, this is from the spiritual, psychotherapic point of view. And then you have the people who are more, let's say, the people who suffer from addiction.
Yeah.
Those people are usually managed by the clinical pharmacological form of Iboga, which is Ibogaine, right? So my advice is that because this is such a powerful medicine that also has so many contraindications, really take the time to sit with the quest of, am I really being called by Iboga, or is it some sort of spiritual ego? So I can
Yeah.
tell people,
Say I
oh, I
did.
sat with
Yeah.
the most powerful
Mm-hmm.
medicine in the world,
Yeah.
right? That is really, really crucial. And if you are going to do it, you want to make sure that, number one, you do your due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who is the shaman or shamans? Where is the place? Does it have medical professionals
Yeah.
available or facility? You want to make sure that you medically cleared,
Yeah.
especially your heart and
Yes.
your psychiatric history.
So this is the things that I did the ceremony for the first time. I think for the only time that I've ever sat with the medicine, and I went because my husband was curious and I was called to it, and I did a ceremony back in 2021, and comparing it to other ceremonies and medicines I've done. Something you touched upon is so important, that it's a very powerful medicine. It is not for everybody. It's extremely powerful. It's the grandfather medicine. They call ayahuasca the grandmother. This is the grandfather. And it's warrior medicine. You really have to be willing, and it's regressional. Somebody had spoken to me before I went, saying that any trauma that has happened to you in your life from the minute that you were maybe even conceived, you will be able to revisit those parts of yourself, in some incidences even relive that trauma, because the medicine believes you must go through the darkness in order to come into the light.
Absolutely. The way I look at it is Iboga really allows you to rewrite your life story
Mm-hmm.
with truth, with what really happens. Because as you know, with trauma, it's our perceived trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily what exactly happened. And the other thing that you touched upon, which is the ceremony, I haven't had a chance to go through that. Iboga can stay in your body for as long as 72 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's a grandfather medicine. It's the medicine of truth and love, right? The power of Iboga is truth and love. So it really tells it like it is. Some people
Yeah.
describe, like a black and white
Mm-hmm.
old TV movie,
Yeah.
where you really see what's happening. One of the things that is important to consider is, are you ready to see the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we are still in the phase before trauma resolution, maybe it's because we need to be protected
Mm-hmm.
from something that happened, right? When maybe you experience something that is absolutely horrific, and for some reason you are being protected, maybe by your brain, your soul, your heart, from that, right? So are you ready to let all the barriers to protections crumble? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
the resources necessary to go through the resolution or the integration or the acceptance of the things that happen?
Right.
And if you're not ready that way, then maybe it's not the right medicine for you.
Yeah. And how did you discover Iboga? So how did your personal journey bring you to this amazing medicine?
So for me, I sat with Iboga. I was initiated in Iboga at the age of 14.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't, I wasn't looking for enlightenment, or I wasn't looking for a spiritual journey. What happened is my mother had cancer, and she had been told that she needed to go through surgery, chemotherapy,
Yeah.
radiation. If not, she wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to go through that. By the way, I'm from Cameroon,
Yeah,
where
I was gonna
Iboga
say,
grows.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and in African culture, children are raised around this medicine. It is very common in the tribes from a very young age to, I think it's almost like them becoming an adult. That's the rite of passage, I would say, in a way, is it?
Yes, yes. But I'm from the city, right? I'm from the
Yeah,
capital city.
yeah,
So this wasn't in my family. This
yeah.
wasn't a rite of passage.
Hmm.
If my mother hadn't had this, maybe I
Might not have
wouldn't.
come across it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so she decided that she wanted to sit with Iboga versus doing all the
Radiation stuff.
Western
Yeah.
medicine. Um, she was quite desperate. And so she sat with Iboga many times, and she couldn't see, she couldn't understand, she couldn't comprehend what was going on. And it happened like 3 times. And then Iboga told her that she needed to bring me, because I would be able to,
Help
uh,
her with
yes.
breakdown
So
every.
that's how I was initiated into Iboga. And um, yeah, because there's no way that, somebody like me who wasn't born in either a family
Mm-hmm.
that practiced Witi or Iboga shamanism would necessarily had sat with that.
Right.
And so, yeah, because like I said, it's a root bark that is pounded, and so it's like a little bit like sawdust, if I
It is.
really want to
Yeah.
describe it, right?
Like
And
eating wood
then,
chips almost, that's how I describe it.
yeah,
Literally eating wood chips.
exactly. And so you have to eat that, and it's a substantial amount, and then you have to swallow it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it started for me. And I remember that first, I was very afraid. First of all, I didn't even know what it was, right? I just
Right.
knew that I was going there to help my mother, because she was sick and it was really bad.
Mhm.
And so that's why I went. So I didn't even know the taste or
Yeah.
anything. And didn't, I
Make
was
it. Yeah, you probably
almost
should
not able to swallow.
follow it.
And on that first journey, I remember when the medicine came on, the first uh, person that I saw was my brother, who had passed away before I was
Wow.
born.
Okay.
And I knew that it was him, and he knew that it was me.
Wow.
And he's the one who took me. I literally went across the veil right away. And that's where Iboga was guiding me, and showing me different herbs and barks, like, you need to go this way and that way, and then you're going to find this herb, and it has to be boiled this long and this many cups a day, and that
Wow.
bark. And yeah, it was,
Was
and I
at
remembered
14, I
everything.
bet you that was like mind blowing, like at 14 to have such strong downloads and something like this happen.
It was, I it, it's ineffable, it's undescribable, because
Yeah.
I it was like I'm talking to you, and telling me, this is what you need to do for your mother. And by the way, she healed.
That's
She healed.
amazing. And she didn't require any radiation or chemo
No,
or anything after.
no,
So,
no.
so many times, and I say my mom also had cancer, and I would always try to tell her, it's like disease is born through emotion, stored trauma, and that's your body's way of communicating to you. And it's your body's practically screaming by the time you're actually really sick, is your body's actual way of screaming at you saying, help me, like this has gotten too much. And so trauma and disease have such a close link with each other.
Absolutely. in, the spiritual world, the this is dis
Mhm.
is disharmony starts at the level of the energy field, right? So by the time it becomes physical, it's
Yeah.
been happening. And when it starts, we are constantly receiving messages from
Yeah.
ourselves. Ourselves are eavesdropping in, everything that's happening and sending messages of different kinds, right?
Right.
I feel tired, I'm stressed, I'm afraid, or I have this anxiety, or there's pain on my back. Sometimes we miss all that because we're distracted, we're not
Yeah.
present
Mhm.
with our bodies,
Yeah. With really,
emotions,
yeah. And you
feeling.
also have a way of suppressing, something happens to you in your childhood, it is traumatic. Your body will automatically suppress that memory in order to protect you and keep you safe. And that was my experience with Iboga. I went out of curiosity, and so much unpacked for me at the time. So much came up with my mother, memories I had completely forgotten. And it's taken me 3 years since I've done that ceremony to integrate, and now some of the things that I saw make sense to me. I use Body Bio every single day, and their hero product, which is a necessity in my family's life, is PC is a pure liposomal phospholipid complex that helps protect the 70 trillion cells in our body from aging, environmental stressors, and toxin exposure. I truly believe that the fountain of your health is actually cellular health. This little guy is great for you, your husband, your kids, even your pets. And I've been feeling all the amazing benefits: better cognitive function, mental clarity, digestion, and even higher levels of energy throughout the day. Our health truly starts with our cells, and PC is giving you that maintenance day in and day out. It makes sure that the good stuff stays in and the bad stuff does not get in. 3 years later.
Exactly. That's why, I think I kind of mentioned that, like, you need to be ready,
Mhm.
first of all, to even experience that,
Yeah.
right? Accept and go through what needs to happen, maybe for forgiveness or
Mhm.
release or transmutation or integration, right? And
Absolutely.
and the thing about Iboga that's a little different from ayahuasca is because it's very literal and it really shows you what happened. There's no room for interpretation.
No, it's very like it's a masculine
It's
energy. Like black,
literal.
white, take it or leave it. And like that's it. There's no in between for you. And it's like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and then I was going to ask you, Dr. Murray, how often, like 10 to people, how often, because it's very different to other plant medicines. How often can somebody do the medicine? What is, if you're not treating for an addiction, right? Obviously, for an addiction, it's a different protocol and stuff. But somebody who's listening who, might have had a lot of deep childhood trauma or trauma in their life, something like that. How often can they do it? And what is the space in between the different ceremonies they should allow themselves?
Mm. So it's different from, with different plant medicines.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, Iboga is so deep.
Yeah.
And when you have a good journey, it takes a while to integrate what
Mm,
you saw. I would say you would maybe wait for a year if it's your first.
yeah.
Like it's taken you 3 years, you
Yes.
personally, to
Yeah.
actually integrate what happened. So
Mhm.
this is not a every 3 months type of
Yeah.
situation, at least a year. And before you go to another ceremony, you always need to ask yourself, you know, why am I going for the next one?
Right. What's
Have
been,
I done what I said I was going to do? Have
mhm.
I integrated what happened last time? Right? Because sometimes, this is something that I see in my clients. It's, you go and you have a big experience, and
Yeah.
then you come home with a lot of resolutions, and then, a couple months later you forget,
Mm.
or maybe it's not so easy, and then you start to think, well, maybe if I have another one,
Yeah. And
it's
it's,
gonna get better. And that is not the work. The work starts when you come back,
yeah.
that deep work, right? And deep work doesn't mean difficult.
Mhm.
I want to make that distinction clear. Deep work means commitment, devotion,
Yeah.
um, awareness, and also permission,
Yeah.
giving yourself permission.
It's so important what you said right now about the real work is not the ceremony when it comes to plant medicine. The real work is when you get back and you integrate, and are you able to hold the very important lessons and the things you've experienced and the medicines have shown you in your day-to-day life? Do you change your patterns? Do you change your habits? Do you lead your life with more consciousness? That's when the real work starts.
Exactly, exactly. And so you really need, you know, like one of the things that can show you that things are happening is when the people around you start to notice, oh, you're a little different.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe you smile more or less, or
Hmm.
people start to notice. So
Right.
you don't even have to speak, you start to embody
Yeah.
whatever things, change,
Right.
habits, patterns, behaviors. And the other thing that I usually tell people is if you have somebody who is close to you, declaring what your intentions are and having that accountability can help, because the brain just forgets. That's just what it does. Because change, the brain likes the familiar.
Yeah.
Anything that is not familiar, it just wants to stop,
Nothing, not deal
right?
with it. Yeah.
Or resistance shows up in many different ways. But if you have somebody who can be a mirror or a witness or accountability, depending on your traditions or the
Yeah.
words that you like, then it can help you stay on track
Right.
longer.
That accountability piece is also so important because a lot of times people go do this, plant medicine work, and then we all have our ego steps in. We always, I always say this, there's your version, their version, and then in the middle there's somewhere the truth, right? And so you just want to be, a part of you doesn't even be like, well, maybe it wasn't quite like this and stuff. So that accountability, whether it's through a coach, a family member, a friend, a mentor, a therapist, is so important, especially people who understand the work that you're doing, because they can really support you and keep you not only accountable, but help you transition through your integration process as well.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing is that um, I really look at post ceremony work as starting to live your life as a ceremony, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes people think that, when they go and have a ceremony or a journey and they have that big experience, they think that it's going to be like, poof, you come home
Not at
and,
all. I
you
wish.
know, and so we have that.
Magic
Maybe
wand. Yeah.
sometimes there's disappointment. Oh my gosh, I'm still being triggered by this. I
Mhm.
had that ceremony, what's wrong with me, right? We start to have that.
Yeah.
But when you understand that it's a journey, it's a process, then you can start to relax into it and maybe release the notion of destination. I have arrived,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. That's what everyone's searching for. I'm already there, but like the learning and the lessons come in the journey, not at the
Exactly.
destination. At the destination, you've already made it. It is those moments along the way. And I always view life like this. Every situation will bring you options. The option you choose is going to take you onto the next path of your journey. So your destination might be your destination, and we'll figure out how to eventually get there always. But how you get there, how quickly you get there, the karma you collect, the dharma you collect along the way is what matters.
Absolutely. And as you go, like a big part of this is actually awareness, right? The awareness that, oh, I was triggered. Oh, I'm in resistance. Uh, oh, whoops, I did it again,
Yeah.
right? Because when you have that awareness, it means it's not subconscious
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing this up because you brought the word choice. Choice can only happen in presence and awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when you are just reacting, it's unconscious or
Mm-hmm.
subconscious. You just do something and you don't know why. But when you bring that awareness, then the reaction
Right.
that you have, or versus the response
Mm-hmm.
that you have, that's what makes a difference. You respond with awareness, with presence, and with choice. But if you're not aware of that choice and you haven't done the work, it's still the same thing.
And the beautiful thing about Iboga also is because it's used in a medical aspect as well, with Ibogaine being one of the 12 alkaloids of Iboga that are heavily used to treat severe addiction. And I think the success rate is something insane, like 90%, or some even for heroin addiction. It's a very high success rate. I have the data somewhere. Iboga has shown to rewire your neurotransmitters, the science behind it. So I wanted to
Yeah,
talk a little bit on that.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the neuropharmacology of Iboga.
Mm.
Um, so I'm going to use words that everybody can
Yes,
understand,
please.
because I don't want to go all
Yeah.
medical doctor, scientist,
Yeah.
nerd.
I know that might be, our listeners might be a little overwhelmed with that, including myself.
Yeah. So I'll make it easy.
Mhm.
So first of all, Iboga works on many receptors on the brain simultaneously, right? That's what makes it different from other psychedelics or plant medicines.
Mhm.
And the receptors, I'm going to start with the one that a lot of people know. A lot of people know the serotonin receptors,
Mm.
right? SSRI, serotonin. And it works on the serotonin 2A receptor. And the normal antidepressants work on serotonin 1A receptors. And what's the difference? The difference is that the serotonin 1A receptors are targeted by antidepressant. And
Correct.
it's just like passive coping, right? So nothing really changes. But Iboga works on serotonin 2A receptors. And it's not just Iboga, other psychedelics as well. And this is, what happens is you start to develop active coping, which brings flexibility, plasticity, and that's what brings the opportunity for transformation.
Right.
Iboga also works on opioid receptors, right? The kappa and mu, and mu is for morphine. And so opioid receptors, what happens is that Iboga resets the reward pathways, right? And these reward pathways are the ones that are really, when people have addictions and this pathway is disrupted,
Mhm.
then the cycle of addiction,
Correct.
cravings, you know, can also stop. That's why it's so successful. And Iboga also works on a receptor that a lot of people don't know. It's called sigma 2 receptor. And the sigma 2 receptor has many things that it does. It helps with pain modulation, right?
Right.
So the perception and the modulation of pain is done with the sigma 2 receptor. And the other thing that um, can happen with the sigma 2 receptor is neuroprotection, right? And a lot of people who sit with Iboga in Africa, like older people, there's not a lot of like Alzheimer's and
Yeah.
those cognitive diseases, right? There's this neuroprotection that happens, and the nerves or the neurons are protected from damage and degeneration.
Mhm.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
And, for those who like, who are little nerds,
Yeah.
cancer research right now has been shown to, like, there could be a potential target for cancer treatments on sigma-2 receptors.
Right.
And another thing that Iboga does, and a lot of, few psychedelics do, is to disrupt the default mode network.
Okay.
DMN. This is the part of the brain that is linked to introspection or rumination, self-reflection, self-criticism, or mind wandering, right? So when Iboga disrupts, and other psychedelics, when they disrupt the default mode network, what happens is that um, your ego becomes less stable, and it becomes more open to information, right?
Mhm.
And that's why all the repressed memories
Start coming
will
up.
show up, like you said. And this is where there is an opportunity to revise, the beliefs, the perspective, and yeah. And a little receptor that also is targeted by Iboga is the NMDA receptors, right? And this one is also, it plays a role in plasticity and
Right.
um, memory function. So
It's
uh,
it's just such a fascinating medicine. And there's one more thing I think, because listeners might be listening to this and have done ayahuasca more. There's no diet to prepare for this per se the way you do, right? For ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, it's like plant-based, this and the other. With Iboga, the detoxification process to get ready is very different.
it's very, very different. And, you know, one of the things that maybe if you're Iboga shaman, I don't know what they do, but I like to look at detox for Iboga as mind, body, heart,
Yeah.
right? You want to detox your mind. Maybe if you watch things that
Fun movies, yeah. Maybe not watch them for a bit. Yeah.
not watch, like how much do you go on social media because they affect you,
Your thoughts.
detoxing your body, even if it's not a specific dieta like in ayahuasca, but really it's, to me, it's like an honoring of the medicine. It's like
Correct.
preparing your home, because your body is your temple, right? If you have people over, you want to kind of have a nice place, maybe you
Yeah,
clean it a little
absolutely.
more, or you have flowers. And so it's the same process, cleaning your heart. What are your thoughts, what are your emotions? And it doesn't mean getting rid of this. Heart detox could even just be like, whoa, I didn't realize that all my thoughts are negative.
Yeah. That's self-awareness. Yeah.
Exactly. And so really taking the time to do all that, to prepare to receive the medicine, it's like respect, it's humility, it's like, I got ready,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the journey actually starts when you start to prepare that way as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a lot of contraindications like with ayahuasca. Don't
Yeah.
eat this, don't eat that, stop
Yeah. It's a
this.
lot. Yeah. It's a lot stricter to prepare, I think, definitely for an ayahuasca, even psilocybin ceremonies, especially ayahuasca, than it is for Iboga. But it's just fascinating because different medicines that come from different cultures and different parts of the world have not only energetically their own way of communicating with you, but how they want to be honored in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then this brings me to asking, because I know that, I've obviously been hearing you speak at other places, and I've been, following you for a while. So I know you talk about that when you got into this work, you discovered some of your unique gifts. The beauty of this medicine was it brought you those gifts. So I want to touch upon, those gifts. What are they? How do you utilize them when working with your clients, or leading a ceremony?
Yes. Um, so I was born with gifts,
Hmm.
and sitting with Iboga just like multiplied, like,
Yeah.
1000x. Or so it's different ESPs, like, right during the Iboga journey, I could read people's thoughts. Like, I
Wow.
literally knew whatever people were thinking. I could see everything. So medical intuition, psychic ability,
Yeah.
medium ability. I don't use my medium ability that much because I really don't want to. Medium is like being able to communicate with people who are not,
Right,
who
right,
have
right.
passed, right?
Mhm.
And it's a door that I don't really
Wanna-
open unless it's like something really important or special. Different types of intuitions, uh, clairvoyance. I have clairsentience. I have a deep sense of knowing. Sometimes my downloads are just like, I know. I
Yeah.
cannot explain how I know,
But you
but I
just
know,
know, yeah. It's
just know.
is this higher intelligence almost. One of my personal favorite products that I've been seeing a real noticeable difference with is the One Skin topical eye supplement. I've been using it for, like I said, about 6 months. And not only has it helped to reduce fine line and wrinkles under my skin, but it's done wonders for dryness. I wake up with my skin feeling super hydrated and moist. So if you're a biohacker like me or just somebody interested in peptides, and want to look just youthful and age gracefully, you need to check out One Skin.
Exactly. Yeah.
I,
And the ability to connect to nature, like crystals or trees, like they talk to me if I open up plant medicines, like I can have like ayahuasca, iboga are in me,
yeah,
right? Like I can have somebody on a psilocybin journey and I can call ayahuasca to come and they're having an ayahuasca experience.
yeah.
Yeah,
It,
so
it's
that
cool when you work,
attunement.
yeah, that attunement that you've worked so much with some of these different medicines that to call in the sacred energy of one when you're on a journey with another, and almost getting them to be together in that way, to guide the person on whatever they need at that time.
Yeah, so when I work with my client, it's really, I start at the level of the soul or consciousness, right? Because it really starts with the consciousness.
Right.
And that's where sometimes people are like, I really don't know what's going on. I don't know what I want. I don't know what's my purpose. I don't know. And so starting at the level of the consciousness, at the
Yeah.
level of the soul, I work a lot with energy. I'm trained in energy healing. I'm a shamanic breathwork practitioner, certified. I mean, I have a lot of
Yeah, I was gonna
certifications, and
say,
and
you're
I'll touch
originally
on
an
that in a little bit.
anesthesiologist, you right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm an anesthesiologist, and that's in the Western medicine world. So I have an integral approach to
Yeah.
my clients. So it's not just, in my coaching or spiritual guidance work,
Right.
it's really about, integration, performance, holistic success, the ability to heal,
Mm-hmm.
coming back into wholeness, having a life of meaning, of fulfillment. I know they're not really tangible, um, but yeah, that's how I work. And so I was touching on my certification because I'm trained in yoga, sound healing, energy healing, and those were actually a very sexy form of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I already knew I had the gifts,
Yeah.
but I was like, well, maybe if I have another training, maybe if I have another certification, maybe if I do this,
Yeah.
then I will start to share my
Yeah.
gifts. And it was because I already had them.
Yeah.
I didn't have to train what I already had,
Yeah.
right? But there was, number one, no confidence. There was no, being in the Western medical world, I was like, well, people are going to think I'm woo woo,
Yeah.
they're going to think I'm crazy,
Yeah. Like,
right? So it felt like,
yeah.
well, if I do this, then I'm going to be validated,
Yeah.
which
But
was a form of resistance.
that's a resistance, and that's the ego, right? They say a lot of
Mhm.
this work is the death of the ego.
Yeah.
It's to telling you that you are like one with the universe and all that stuff, not from an egotistical place, but because that we're energy and we share energy, and it resides in all of us. So yeah, but that's the ego that comes out and tells you, oh, you need these qualifications, you're not good enough, you're an imposter, you're not good enough. It's that inner voice
Exactly.
that creates that self-doubt, so you shy away your gifts from people.
Mhm. Exactly.
Having these unique gifts and, coming back to the sense of purpose. Because, like you said, a lot of people come and they say, hey, when they start Iboga, they're like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. What's my purpose? And I also want to say that purpose is something that can shift as we shift, right? Where your purpose is at 20s, maybe not your purpose in your 50s, right? So this idea of purpose is something that as we evolve as people, our purpose also evolves and matures with us. And when I've been following you for a while, so one of the things was bringing your purpose is really accepting your gifts and bringing them to the rest of the world to help other people. So I wanted to talk about how you do that, and how did you come to that point you're like, this is why I'm here, and this is what I'm meant to be doing.
That's such a beautiful question. Um, so I think that I kind of knew from a very young age
Mhm.
that, um, I had something to do working with people. Like at 6 years old, I was already saying I'm going to be a doctor.
Right.
Um, and I was, as a little girl, I never played with my dolls, like, hair and makeup or
Hmm.
clothes. I just played doctor, right?
Yeah.
And, during the Iboga initiation, it was like, it's not just doctor, you are actually here. I heard two things: to bring heaven on earth and to
Hmm.
heal humanity.
Right.
That's what I heard. But it didn't really make sense at 14. It's only later that,
Yeah.
I started to remember. So as I started a deeper healing journey, I think it started in 2012.
Hmm.
That's when my gifts started coming back, because after the Iboga journey, that intensity, I sat with Iboga every weekend for 3 months.
Hmm.
But that was to heal my mother. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, I'm going,
Oh my God.
right? So
Yeah.
it was so intense. And then I also realized that I was different from my classmates. And I had developed this belief that in order to belong, I had to be exactly like everybody else,
Right.
right?
But
So
that's the
I was kind of,
programming. Yeah.
I was hiding, I was pretending that, oh, I don't see anything, I don't know anything. But then and then I went to medical school, and it was like, I'm a scientist,
Yeah.
and things have to be this way. So I went through that phase, right? And then 2012 happened, and people in the world were saying, oh, it's the end of the world, the end of the Mayan calendar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, what happened was my gifts showed up in ways that I didn't expect and I didn't
Right.
control. I remember I was at a party, at an event. It was like a pool party, and I was walking down, the path to the pool, and this couple was coming in front of me, walking in front of me, and the guy's ancestors came through me, and it was like,
Wow.
you need to tell him, whatever message that was, and I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no. And so here I am. I don't know this person, never met them. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Just imagine, right? Like how
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was like, not only was it embarrassing, it was just like weird. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have a message from your ancestors. I know that I don't know you, but
Yeah.
and so this person was like, Sure. I mean, it was a curated party. So it was like, okay, it's not like some
Yeah.
crazy person on the
Yeah, yeah,
street.
yeah.
And then when I gave them the message, he just started bawling because everything was true and
So
stuff
accurate. Yeah.
had happened in his family and was bringing healing. But for me, I was like, this is not okay because
Yeah.
now things are just happening without my control.
Yeah. Without you're, yeah, you felt like you lost the ability to tell the narrative. Things are just coming out of you.
Yeah, and that was not my intention,
Mm.
right? So these doors were just open and I was not aware, but they got activated in
Yeah.
2012. So that's when I was like, this is not okay. And what do I need to do? And in my meditation, I saw like mentors, teachers that would teach me how to open or close these doors because it's a lot of
A lot of downloads, a
information.
lot of information.
Yeah, I don't want to be going around knowing everything about everybody.
Right.
Who wants
You want to be able to
that? And
channel it.
so, yeah, and so that's when my gifts came back, and that's when I started to remember all this and remember that, I and when I asked, what is bringing heaven on earth, and it was like
Mhm.
it's coming back to wholeness, coming back to
Yeah.
love, coming back to connection, truth, wisdom, right? These are the things that I'm here to bring to
Right.
humanity. And so at first I was like not saying anything at my hospital because I was in the closet, and
Yeah.
after a while I came out as spiritual in my
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah,
We're like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's
I
scary. Yeah.
started to bring crystals in my operating room, essential oils, and like it
Yeah.
became like my anesthesia machine, and space was an altar.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But it's so crazy to think, and something you touched upon is, we have all this programming that we must be like other people. We must fit in. We must be like others because being authentic to ourselves, being different is not okay. And Gabor Mate talks about this a lot, that we have been disconnected from our authenticity because we want to belong. We want to belong to somebody, to a community, to people, to culture. And that programming runs so deep in us that it removes us further and further away. And it's a very courageous thing, like what you're describing you did, is, being in the medical industry for 20 years, gone down this like science-based path to come out and say, you know what? I'm actually going to embrace my true self. And my true self is still this, but my real true self, also a part of it is the spirituality, the unknown, the other realms, the idea of so much coexisting at once, the 3D reality.
Exactly. That you said it so well. You said it so well because I came to the realization that I had lost so many parts of
Yourself.
myself.
Yeah.
And I was actually cutting myself short. It's like
Mhm.
people who think only the left brain is like good,
Right.
and it's like, no, your right brain, you need your right brain. The
Right. That's
language of the soul comes through the right brain,
right.
right? And the other thing that you said, which is that we start to believe that belongingness has something to do with being
Right.
sane,
Yeah.
which is,
Nothing to do
if
with
that
that.
was
Yeah.
true, then what about race, gender,
Yeah.
religion? Then we wouldn't talk to people who are different, and that's what creates separation. We don't need to be same to belong.
Yeah. I think we're living in a very scary world right now, that if your political views or your religious beliefs or just your views on certain things differ from somebody else, you get canceled, you get shut down. There's no space for dialogue. But we are all unique. We have our own set of traumas, not only of ours, but from generations. We have our own
Exactly.
perspectives on things, and that's what makes us us. And if we cannot have healthy dialogue and be receptive and open to the differences in us, then we're not hoping for humanity.
Absolutely. And it's when I work with my clients, there's something that I call your iconic essence, right? It's
Mhm.
your soul essence. We are like fingerprints of, the divine, of source, Buddha, Allah, whatever it is for you. We are all unique, and that's what creates this
Yeah,
tapestry. Just look outside. Are all the trees the same? Are all the
absolutely.
flowers the same?
No,
No. How can you create a garden if everything is the
it's the
same,
same.
unless that's your intention, right? And that's what enriches us. Like, I
Mhm.
love to travel, right? And when I discover other cultures, other foods, other ways of moving or
Yeah.
being or dancing, it's like, wow, right? We thrive on that. It's built in us.
In us too. And I think that is the real beauty of plant medicine and this work, because it opens you up to such a world of possibilities, of uniqueness, that we all have gifts. Every single one of us is special, but some people like you can tap into those more easily. Somebody who's not that in tune with themselves might not be able to go there, maybe in this life, maybe they'll be able to do it in the next. So it is that way that we're all allowed to be exactly who we are, and we will be loved, and someone will embrace us, and there will be community for us. But it's letting go of that fear that what if I don't get accepted?
Exactly. You just said a word that I want to repeat for the audience. It's the word allow.
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed. You are allowed to be.
Yeah.
You are allowed to be here.
Yeah.
You are allowed to be loved. You are allowed. This is so powerful because so many people don't even feel like they are allowed to exist.
Correct.
And you are allowed, permission given.
Yeah, that's why we're here. Creator has put you here to exist and experience and create life
Yes,
to its fullest, highest potential
absolutely.
of what you deem fit in your reality.
Exactly.
And by doing
Yeah,
this work, the beautiful thing is your reality shifts, because the deeper you go internally, the more beautiful your outside world becomes.
absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. And it's like the concept of stillness, right? People are
Mhm.
like, oh, meditation is so good. The deeper you go inside, the higher, the farther you can go in
Correct.
consciousness. You can
Mhm.
go to the stars, you can go, but it's from
It
the
all starts
inside.
inside. Everything
Yeah.
starts within. And this is what brings me to another thing I want to talk to you about, is the safety of, like, you're incredible. I was lucky enough to find your work and kind of follow you, but there are a lot of, I wouldn't say fake shamans out there, but they're egomaniacs out there who don't
Yes.
practice with the same intention. And it's all about me, 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 me. And I think there's a lot of safety and security, especially when it comes to women, that needs to be created around this sacred work, like plant medicine work. So I really want to talk about, and have our listeners hear this part about the safety measures of who you sit with, because you're sharing energy, and why it's so important to do a ton of research, ask other people who've sat with this person, really connect with them, see if your gut is saying yes before you enter into any ceremony. Say, I want to tell them more from you, because you do this work so often. When it comes to women looking for a place to do ceremony work, what should they be looking at for safety and security?
First of all, it is so crucial to realize that you, as a woman, have innate wisdom,
Correct.
right? You have innate wisdom. You have your gut intuition,
Mhm.
and to trust it, right? So when it comes to sitting with somebody, you have to do multi-level due diligence.
Yeah.
Who is this person? Where were they trained?
Yeah.
What's the lineage?
Right.
Right? How long have they practiced? And I'm not saying they should have practiced for years and years and years, because you have advantages
Yeah,
for
completely. Yeah.
for each. How long have they practiced? Where is the facility? How safe is the facility where you are going to have the ceremony?
Mm-hmm.
You need to do due diligence about the person when they speak to you.
Does it
I
resonate?
always say, how do you feel after you speak to them? Even after you speak to anyone, right? That like when you go home, do you feel drained? Do you like, oh, that was so tough, right?
Yeah.
You need to honor that. How do they talk to you? Do they talk down to you? Do they listen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Do they honor your concerns, your questions, your intentions? Because with the ceremonies, you have you have the setting, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
are the things I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah.
You have to look online, what are the reviews?
Yeah.
If
Absolutely.
maybe they're not in where you are, ask for previous participants, not just like, oh, these are the reviews that they put on their website.
Well,
you
mm,
know ask to speak to them. How was it?
yeah.
Right. And notice how they describe, do they describe the ceremony to you? Do they talk about the doors? You need to ask about their cosmology, like what do they believe in?
Mm-hmm.
If, their cosmology is like, oh, somebody's out there to get me, and you have like the entities and the devils
Yeah.
and that's what it's going to be, right?
Mhm.
Do they believe in a benevolent universe? You
Yeah.
have to ask that. And you have to ask yourself, what is my cosmology?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
What do I believe in? Are we a fit? Because if I believe that, the universe is
Yeah.
benevolent and they over there, I'm not going to have a good journey
Yeah.
unless we resolve it before we go.
There has to be an
Are
alignment.
there other people? Are there seaters? It could even come to details like, where are the bathrooms?
Yeah, of
Am I
course.
going to have to walk like,
Far. Yeah.
far?
You know,
Is there somebody who can walk with me?
especially on Iboga, you don't have the equilibrium,
Yeah,
you need that extra assistance versus like
yeah.
with ayahuasca, not necessarily, but with Iboga, definitely you need that
Definitely
extra
with
assistance.
Iboga, a lot with ayahuasca, a
Mhm.
little less with psilocybin. You want to ask all those questions. And very important, you have to notice their reaction when
Yeah.
you ask them questions. Are they annoyed, or are they like, oh, do you not trust me?
Mhm.
Or that's a red flag,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they should
Absolutely.
answer any question that you have. So it's that's why I call it multi-level safety check, right? So you checking the place, you checking the person, not only online, but how they respond to you,
Mhm.
how they talk to you, how they answer your question. If they are triggered by you, you have to notice if there is like any counter transference or transference, are they like, oh, you're so cute? And
Yeah.
because, we
Yeah.
are
That's no go.
vulnerable when we are on
Mhm.
medicine, right?
Yeah.
Is
Absolutely.
it a one-on-one journey? How many people are there? How
Mhm.
big is the space? You don't want to be crammed in a tiny room with like mat to mat with other
Yeah.
people if that's not what you desire.
Yeah. Y- Yeah, definitely where you are in your personal space, how you about sharing that, what feels comfortable to you, and how does
And
it resonate with your gut?
yeah, and you have to have consent. You need to realize, do they have consent practices in place? Do you have agreements? For
Yeah.
example, if I'm having a tough journey, is it okay for me to touch you? Is it okay for me to come into your space?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just want to be on your own? You have to have those agreements set in place
Yeah.
before you start the ceremony,
I think
because
that's
many people
100%.
have have had traumas where, when you're in that journey space and somebody comes and in your space and is like touching you, it's like, whoa, like
Yeah.
what's happening, right?
Yeah.
That
Don't go
can
there. Yeah.
re-traumatize you.
Hmm. especially if you're not said it's okay prior. And I think it's really important to tell people, instruments can change, music, there's all these things that you need to sensory prepare somebody for from a sensorial aspect as well.
Absolutely.
Taste, smell, sounds, visuals, your hearing becomes extremely sensitive at times, all of these things.
All of these things should be told. I just went like more safety
Yeah,
versus what are the changes
yeah.
that
But
happen
all
when
of
you
it,
are,
I think
yeah.
the
All
safety
of it
aspect for
is
women.
so important.
And one of my closing traditions I'm starting on this podcast is I'm asking everybody a question. And it's a universal, like it's becoming a question that I'm asking on all my podcasts now so that I can really take someone's lesson. So the question is, what is the one lesson or learning to date that has been crucial for your personal evolution and has carried you throughout your journey to where you are today?
Mm. Love and hope.
That's beautiful. I didn't expect
Love
that,
and
but
hope.
it's beautiful.
Really realizing that you are loved.
Mm-hmm.
You are loved. Sometimes we don't perceive that love, or we believe we're not lovable. Like my own journey, I had a wound of abandonment. My parents were divorced. So I'm just going to say it very shortly. It was like, if my own parents abandoned me, I'm absolutely not lovable.
Really? Yeah.
And I carried that belief for a long time. So even if people loved me, I was like, whoa, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Why?
It was so alien to you. Yeah.
Exactly. Until I healed that wound. And when I healed that wound, I realized how much love was abundant, in my life, in the universe. And love is actually my transformation technology. Like
Wow.
I heal my clients through love
Yeah.
and hope. And I talk about these wounds that can really um, rob us
Yeah.
from the gifts that we have in my recent book. And it's so love and hope. Strive for those two things. When you have hope, you're not going to stop. Like any failure
Mhm.
will not make you think, oh, I'm worthless. I might as
Yeah,
well stop.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you have something to fall back on. And where can just the viewers here know where could they find you and your book? So, all your
Mhm.
handles, could you share that with us?
So my website is www.mariembouni.com. So basically my name
Mm-hmm.
is the name of my website. My Instagram handle is at Marie Mbouni MD. My book came out November 7th, so your support is greatly appreciated. And it's called Healing the Five Wounds of the Heart. Free yourself from the bonds of the past. And I talk about the five wounds that most adults have. You might have one or two or three, like abandonment, betrayal, denial, judgment, separation. And the wounds of the heart coming from the scars of the soul that we carry, that we receive through our life journeys. And it
That's
has a
really
lot of
beautiful.
practices
Yeah.
and yeah.
It's really beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so incredibly grateful that I got to speak to somebody as knowledgeable as you and really let the listeners learn about a medicine that I had worked with and had greatly benefited me. And, this everything happens as it's meant to. And I'm really grateful that this was my first, on my platform. This is going to be the first podcast about, plant medicine. And it actually turns out to be Iboga. So it's really, really special.